So, welcome everyone. I'm so happy that you're here. This is Naming with Heart. Craft brilliant brand titles that captivate, connect, and convert your ideal audience. And second thing on my little list is just a little quick icebreaker. In the chat, if you can type in your name, your city, and your country, and some of you I think may have started doing that already, your expertise, and what name or title you'd like to work on. This is part of the process here today, is to just get the ideas going, get the ideas moving, flowing. Okay, so Tiff has a signature talk. Christy lives in Los Altos, California, St. Paul, Minnesota. I am in Florida. And so Tiff wants to do a signature talk. Amazing. And wonderful. Okay, so let us move on. So the agenda for today is we're going to talk about best tactics for creating names and titles, tips for attracting your desired audience, a step-by-step plan. So I do have my technique is steeped in strategy. And so I really wanted to have a step-by-step plan that you can use yourselves to craft names and titles going forward. We're going to create some workshop names or titles. Or actually, we're going to workshop. That was actually done as a verb. We're going to workshop names and titles. So if you don't know me, or maybe this is the first time you've been to one of my events, I work with entrepreneurs, mostly women, to help them speak their voice, share their voice more powerfully. And my mission is to empower you to boldly be seen and heard. Some of you know, I used to say unapologetically. And I'm kind of shifting that. I'm testing it and I'm working on how I can say that maybe more powerfully. So for now, it's boldly be seen and heard, right? Because it is our time to really step up in the world and share our message. And I actually believe in this so much that I left a lucrative finance career to share my voice and help others as well. I was almost a decade in the finance industry. And when I realized that I wasn't following my mission and purpose, I knew I had to do something about it. So I did. And now I help other people to share their voice as well. And I'll just say this real quick because I don't have a slide on this at all. I actually overcame decades of fear of public speaking. And so now I know how important it is to really work on your voice, both the strategy side and also the mental, emotional stuff that goes through when we're putting our voice out there, when we're putting our message out there. So once again, if you don't know me, I run a coaching consulting business. I'm a best-selling author of 2 books. This is one of them, Sculpt Your Life from Sketch to Masterpiece. I wrote when I was working with artists, mostly. I'm a speaker and a trainer. I have a master's in communications, an undergraduate degree in finance and business. I'm also an energetic healer. I'm a content creator and a micro-influencer. And recently, about 6 months ago, I created I really wanted to share my voice and help others really be more empowered. So I created a whole new channel of true crime where I support survivors and help them get more power, get their power back. It's called Empowering True Crime. And between YouTube, TikTok, and just very recently, Instagram, I have over 1 million views across all of those platforms of my videos. So I'm working on it from scratch along with you all. And so I feel like that's really helped me to be a better teacher and a trainer. Okay, so your voice matters. This is why we're here. Because your voice matters, your purpose matters, and your message matters. And like I said a little bit ago, now is your time to boldly be seen and heard, and unapologetically as well. All right, so we're just going to go right into the content because this is the point of this particular program is to really be content heavy. And then at the end, if there's any questions that you may have, of course, you're welcome. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat as well. And I want this to also be participatory and collaborative. So feel free to give me your thoughts or ask questions along the way. Okay? Okay, so the first thing that is really important is I developed this acronym, and it's messaging that stares. And so if you could think about staring, right? there is a very fine point. Like you're typically looking at something, you're focused on something, you're intentional and you're focused, right? There's a specific target typically when you're staring, okay? And so the acronym just happened to work. And so I love it because it really is, it works. And so the first thing when we're creating names, titles, and any other type of messaging that you want to create for your brand, for social media, we want it to start the first S with specific. And if nothing else, know that specific messaging will always serve you in the long run over general messaging. We're going to dive a little bit more into that in a bit. The second letter, the T, stands for tangible. So this isn't always necessary. However, tangible, when let's just talking about a title. When there's a tangible benefit or outcome in a title, like for example, for this class, there was a tangible outcome that I mentioned in there. And there was tangible benefits. And so whenever possible, if you can add anything tangible that really, and by tangible, I'm talking about something that people can actually conceptualize, not something very elusive or too big, too woo-woo. We want something as much as possible tangible. And welcome, Ray, from New Jersey, now living in Costa Rica. Amazing. Okay, so the A stands for audience. We want it to be focused always on our audience. It needs to be relevant to our audience. We're going to dive more into this in a minute. Relevant and timely. So this should be relevant and timely to your audience and to your brand. And I added timely there under the R because I used to say it needs to be urgent, and it helps to be urgent, but it doesn't have to be. It's kind of like a nice to have. So for example, if you want to have like bikini, okay, summer's coming up, bikini body, 30 days to being bikini body ready, right? That helps. 30 days, knowing that you can do it, or maybe 14 days or whatever it is. Having timeliness and urgency really helps when creating names and titles. So the E stands for an emotional reaction. Whenever possible, let me back up. People make decisions at an unconscious level, and then we justify it with our mind. We justify it with the mind. Yeah. So it's usually, and this is even shown in studies, that the emotional reaction is usually the first. Like think about when you go into a place and you feel a certain type of way, going to a new event or to a group or even to Publix or to your supermarket. You feel a certain type of way going in. That's an unconscious emotional reaction that you're getting from whatever you're going into. So that's always really important if we can add that to our titles and names. And then the S stands for simple. And I never added this until I realized that we have a tendency to overcomplicate. I am not immune to this. When I first crafted the title for this event, I added all of this extra stuff in it. And what did I end up doing? I ended up simplifying it because at the core, we want to get right to the message. And that's why I love that this actually comes out to stairs because it's so relevant. And I should have had an image here of somebody staring, right? Like just getting right to the core of what it is. So if nothing else, if you leave today and you remember that your messaging, if you can get to these six aspects, this will be really helpful for you to craft better titles and better messaging that really speaks to your audience. And ultimately, we want them to convert. Convert means to take action, for have them to take action. Okay, so with so much clutter, this is why it's important. Right now, we have an abundance of clutter, right? Tell me, type yes if you have way too many emails, social media messages, notifications that you can really do anything with? Let me know. Type yes if that's you. And if that's not you, then let me know your secret, please. Most people connect with specific language, not general. And that's why S is number one on my STARS acronym. Tiff says, absolutely, yes. We have a lot of clutter, yes. And this is just kind of like a tip, like a best practice, and I'll go into a lot of those races. Overwhelmingly, yes. When we're talking about names and titles, don't try to be cute, funny, or use double meanings. You can use cute, funny, or double meanings in your text, right? When you're describing it. Maybe even if you're creating a slogan, although I don't recommend it for slogans either. But I am a super double meaning nerd. I love adding double entendre to everything, and I really have to work hard at remembering to simplify, right? So simple and clear is actually better. And one of the ladies on the call today, she happens to be my client, and I happen to be her client. She's a master copywriter, and I send her my copy sometimes. I'm a very good writer, right? I have a master's in communication, so I am a good writer, and I still have to be reminded of these things. And I remember I wrote an email recently, and I had like a really cute double meaning in the subject line. And she said, "What do you mean by this?" And I caught myself, and I said, "Oh, right, I'm trying to give double meaning, but it makes sense to me, but it doesn't it probably won't make sense to most of my audience." And so once again, simple and clear is best. And if you just joined, I'm just going to give the STARS acronym one more time. So first is messaging that is specific, tangible if possible, audience focused, relevant, and if possible, timely, that there's some urgency or time-basedness to it, that there's an emotional reaction, and that it's simple. Okay. Simple is actually a fun one because say yes in the chat if you have a tendency to maybe be a little bit overly verbose, overly complicated, maybe add extra words and make things more complicated than they need to. I definitely have done that, and I have to rein myself in a lot of times. In fact, what's really cool about social media nowadays is that because a lot of times there are character limits. So for example, on YouTube, you can only write 100 characters of your headline. I'm forced to say it to be more simple and be more impactful, right? But ultimately, that's the beauty of this. When it's simpler, you actually can make a bigger impact. And so I hope that this helps you. All right, so I have a couple of ideas, and this is just for us to start getting ideas. You're welcome to type in the chat if you have any ideas. And I went through. So here was just an example here. So there was somebody that I know who wanted to create a love challenge. And I was like, that is way too general. That can mean anything. So I encouraged her to be a little more specific and more audience focused. And so I suggested something like 5 steps to attract your divine partner. So another person wants to do a health challenge. Again, very broad. What does that mean? Who is that for? So I said 5 days to reverse diabetes, right? So that one is not going to get everybody. Not everybody has diabetes, needs to reverse it, or cares. However, a health challenge is so broad that you might not get anybody on there anyways, or they might drop off because it's not that interesting or pertinent to them. The same with the attracting your partner, right? So one thing I'd like to do, I am a huge fan of subtitles. So if you really want to call it, let's say like the Soul Love Challenge, that's fine. Give it a subtitle. 5 steps to attract your divine partner, right? So that there is some specificity to it. If you have a really great, amazing name, a name of a series or a name of a project or a book series maybe, you can always add a subtitle to make that more specific. The same thing here with the last example, optimal health challenge. Maybe you love that and you want to talk about a lot of different topics. That's fine. So give it a subtitle. Give it and this could be the same for a webinar, a book series, anything like that. Give it some specificity so that people can connect to what you have to offer. Now, I will say this right now before we move on. Sometimes if you are a celebrity or you have millions of followers, you have already the credibility and the fame, the notoriety to be able to call something the optimal health challenge, and people who already know you might be interested in what you have to offer just because they know you and you already have that fame. If that isn't the case for you, then this is more important for you to be more specific so that you can connect better with your audience. Let me know if that resonates with you. Type a yes or a thumbs up in the chat if that makes sense to you. Alrighty, so let's move on. So here is just, we talked about titles before. Now we're going to talk about general names. And these are just some guidelines, again, for us to start to think about, to brainstorm what differences between titles and names, okay? So let's say you want to create a group for your audience, for your clients. And you want to call it, let's say, the Business Women group. That's okay. Or you can call it Visibility Vixens. Now, Visibility Vixens is the name I use. I'm saying this kind of tongue-in-cheek. Visibility Vixens is a name I came up with almost a year and a half ago. And it was already taken. And I did one vital step that I didn't do, which I'm going to teach you today to make sure that you do so that this doesn't happen to you before you lose lots of money and time and energy. But I had a really great name that really captured the essence of my brand and my audience. And I know some of you know this, so to remind me if this was you and you loved Visibility Vixens, let me know in the chat, please, because I know I had a lot of really, really great feedback when I developed that community, because it was a community, it was a we. Yes. Thank you. So here's another example. Okay, so maybe you're creating an entrepreneurs group. And that's okay. Maybe like if you have Meetup is a good example. I am part of a lot of Meetup groups. And there's a group called like the Entrepreneurs Club. I happen to live in Miami, the Entrepreneurs Club of Miami. And that's okay. But it's so general, it's so broad, right? Maybe instead, like for me, maybe I want to create a female founders forum. I might be more interested in something more specific to women entrepreneurs, right? And I'm not saying one is necessarily, in this case, is necessarily better than the other. It depends on the platform of how you're presenting it. In some cases, simpler actually might be better for names. However, in the case of Visibility Vixens and Female Founders Forum, you can definitely see that there's much more specificity and much more audience centeredness in those two names that's going to connect with that specific audience better. So if you work with men and women, then obviously Female Founders is going to turn off the men, right? So obviously then that wouldn't work. But if your target audience is business women, entrepreneurial women, then Female Founders Forum might work better than just a general entrepreneurs group. You're going to have a lot of extra guys in there, and if you want to focus on women, then you're going to be dedicating more time to men versus your actual target audience. Okay, so those are just some examples, some ideas for us to start to think about as we move on. So some other naming tips. Alliteration is is really cool. It's fun. And it really helps to have names land and stick. So as an example, I have here Fearless Femmes. And apologies to the male in the audience. I am going to be using a lot of female-centric names in this particular presentation because most of my audience are women. So Fearless Femmes is alliteration. Okay, another example is rhymes or similar sounds. My sister actually has Attunity University. right? So that itty sound at the end, and the way that the words, there's kind of like a sing-songiness to it. It sounds nice, even if you have no idea what a tunity is. I had no idea what that was until I talked to her. So, and maybe, like just as I said, maybe a tunity wouldn't be good. Her specific audience are very spiritual focused people, and they would understand this. Her audience is not the general audience. If her audience was a general audience, I would not recommend the word attunity because most people don't know what that is or what that means. I would suggest that she come up with another word, like Ayurveda. She's an Ayurvedic person, an Ayurveda university or something else like that. Ayurveda Academy. And once again, I said this a little earlier about trying to make things cute. So don't try to make jokes or use ambiguous meanings. And I use the example art of living, and many of you saw my email where I had no idea what Matthew McConaughey was putting on because he created this program called Art of Living. And it was unclear to me, and I'm sure that it was unclear to a lot of other people. And as I've said before, he's a celebrity, so he has the the upside that people already know him, and maybe just they're interested in what he creates because they already know him and they like him and they just want to see what's happening. I didn't resonate with that because I had no idea, and my time is so precious. I have there's so many things going on. I really want to know what I'm getting into before I get into it. Right. And yeah, the same thing. Actually, I have somebody told me that they attended and thought it was really good, but still at the end had no idea what Art of Living was. So I thought that was really interesting. So there's a 7-step brand naming process that we're going to go through. And so I kind of gave you the laws with my STAIRS acronym of kind of some general laws to consider and think about in your messaging. And so this is the actual step-by-step process, okay? And I'm going to run through it real quick, the 7 steps, and then we're going to dive into each one of them so that we can just get a little more granular with each of them. So the first is to know who your target audience is. The second is to be clear about your brand identity. The third is to find overlaps between those two when we're creating our names and titles, just to make sure that there's an alignment with both of those, with target audience and your brand. The fourth is to brainstorm ideas, come up with some ideas. The fifth is to narrow it down. The sixth is to search trademark. So to understand trademark, and that's the little secret that I was telling you, something that I didn't do when I had Visibility Vixens, and something I encourage you to do. And we'll go over that real briefly, but a great way for you to make sure that you don't get in trouble later down the road with your names. And then you're going to choose your top choice, right? So it's pretty simple. I could probably even put this down into less steps, but I want us to go through this process together. So I thought it was wise to do it into 7 steps. Okay, so the first step is to connect to your desired audience. And what does that mean? Actually, just to get a gauge from everybody, who is your audience? Type in the chat, and that can be your ideal client. If you're an author, that could be your ideal reader. If you're a speaker or a trainer, who is your audience? Who is your client that you most want to speak to? So for me, it's mostly women entrepreneurs, although I do work with all different types of entrepreneurs and leaders. Women 40 plus entrepreneurs and business owners. Okay, awesome. Okay. So Ray, can you just maybe be a little more specific? People who are sinned and are they looking for redemption? Are they looking for inspiration? You can you don't have to answer it now, but just be thinking about that. So I talk about, I'm sure that you've probably heard other marketing people talk about pain points, right? So understanding what their pain points are. And that just means what do they currently care about? What are their problems? What are their challenges? Right? So I guess this is a good way for you, Ray, then to think about. So what is their current problem? Because do they want to, do they think that there's something like what is their challenge? What is their problem? What bad we do, don't ever cross the line. Okay. And then we will want to think about their goals, dreams, and desires. And by the way, in the next slide, I'm going to go through some examples. We're going to just kind of brainstorm some ideas here together and just to think about different, kind of thinking about this in a different way. And then the last thing I want to mention here is what's their real why, their real underlying motivations. And I think if you can ever get to the real heart of this, you will know and understand your target audience, your clients so well that then you can really create super targeted, whatever they need, programs, classes, whatever they need, if you can really get down to the why. So here we're going to go through through an example here together. And I just used very simple because we talked about health earlier. Somebody who wants to lose weight. Okay, so maybe we'll say a woman who wants to lose weight. That's what she's saying is her goal and desire. Very common, a very common goal. Before I go, Ray says, men are 80 to 90% of who I reach out to. Okay, great. That's awesome. That's really good to know. So women who wants to lose weight. Now, what are her pain points, problems, and challenges? She's tried every expensive diet, every exercise, every detox. She's frustrated and she's still not dropping the pounds. She feels bloated, tired, and old, and probably ugly, just doesn't feel attractive. Okay. These are very, so you start getting, here, lose weight is it's kind of like general, right? But then you start diving deeper into what are more of their issues. And then you get these that are kind of some more specific and more audience focused things that they would care about. Now, what's their real motivation? And if there's something else you can think of, type it in the chat. As a woman myself, I'm not in a relationship at the moment, but I can see where if she's feeling overweight, bloated, tired, old, and not attractive, she's just not feeling attractive anymore. And she's worried her husband or her partner won't love her anymore and maybe even leave her. Even saying that, even though I'm not currently experiencing it, but just saying that, there was an emotional weight to that was so much heavier than saying some of these other things here. So we go back to the acronym E for emotional reaction. If we can get down to the real why, the underlying motivation, then you'll really start to grab people's attention, really start to captivate. So is there another and this doesn't have to be for a woman, but let's say a person who wants to lose weight. What do you think, or maybe you've experienced this, what could be another underlying motivation that they have to lose weight? Oh, I just thought of another one. Somebody that I know had a heart attack. And so they wanted to lose weight because they didn't want to leave their kids behind. Like there was a real motivation. The fear of dying and losing their family was a real motivation. So what could be another underlying motivation, the real why of somebody losing weight or wanting to lose weight? Health concerns is good, but how many people do we know that they have health concerns and still don't take action? So let's think even deeper. What are those things? What are those trigger points? Like maybe a spouse telling them that they're going to get a divorce might cause somebody to, like, let's say if they have a gambling problem, might cause somebody to stop a bad habit, All right, so you get the idea here that we want to, whenever possible, just dive deeper, be more, get more specific, and get even more granular, even more emotional, even more emotionally connected with our audience. The more, and I'll just say this here, I haven't written it. I don't think I've written this here today in this presentation. Vulnerable. Don't be afraid to get vulnerable with your audience, because that's the real why is vulnerable for the person. Okay, and I'll just share this for myself. Recently, when I realized I created my business plus the true crime channel, there's this sense of love and connection that I want to create, a community. And that goes down to real, like that's a vulnerable space for me, right? It's not just about helping people. There's a deeper, deeper, deeper meaning for me. And so when you can get to that deeper why, you really have some gold there. Okay, so here are some title ideas I came up with, and you're free to come up with your own titles. And you can tell me out of all of these, which one you think would be best for this woman who wants to lose weight because she doesn't feel attractive and she thinks she might lose her spouse. So here's the secret sauce to sexy. Tone up trouble spots fast and feel sexy again. Burn unwanted fat fast and get your sexy back in the bedroom. 30 days to lose weight quickly and feel young, hot, and desired again. So what do you think of these titles? Do you like one more than the rest? Or do you have something else you'd like to contribute? And by the way, if you want to chat, you can also unmute and speak if you'd like to just speak it out instead of typing it. So what I would say is, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, type in the chat, which one do you like of these do you like the best? Or tell me another title that you feel would be better.
Hi, this is Tiff.
Yes.
And I like I think they're all fun. And I was just curious just to dialogue because I saw the 30 days to lose weight quickly and feel young, hot, and desired again. And I almost wondered, would I put the 30 days in there because instant gratification takes too long? And I wonder if I'm thinking, if it said lose weight quickly and feel young, hot, and desired again, on the one hand, I love the 30 days because I just wanted to ask your thoughts on this because I sometimes put days and then I just wonder, someone going to say, is 30 days not enough? Is it too much? I don't know.
Right.
I'm just curious. Right.
So what I would say is if you've got have that, the number of days, if you're going to have urgency, if you're going to have timeliness in there, make it according to what methodology you have. So if you actually have a 30-day game plan for people to lose weight, then put 30 days. Some people might have a 5-day plan or a 10-day, there's a 10-day detox, right? So maybe it's a 10-day detox to lose weight quickly and feel young, hot. You know what I mean? So I would say if you ever have a doubt, make it short enough that it's intriguing, but not so short in time that then you risk it being out of integrity with yourself, right? So because of that whole instant gratification thing. I get it. Did I answer your question?
That did. Thank you.
I want to release the thinner person in me. What's the thinner person in you? Ray, if you wouldn't mind, if you want to come on off mute, what does the thinner person in me mean to you?
I think not just women, but people are trapped in a heavier themselves that they can't get out of. They're looking to escape, but
okay. So then as you're saying that, then to me, what comes to mind is almost like a plan, coming up with a title that there's a plan where the person can actually like envision that ideal self within them. Something like that. That's cool. Okay. And so however possible, we want to have them connect to that, So with something like a title like that, we want to add, maybe there's some visuals in there where somebody's like looking at themselves in the mirror, maybe their bigger self and then the thinner self or something like that. So that there is an emotional connection that we have with that. Now, here's one thing. I actually originally had Secret Sauce to Sexy, and then I had it as a bigger title, and then I had a subtitle, one of these as a subtitle. And I decided to just remove it and have it as its own because it was kind of like a little trick. I would not recommend Secret Sauce to Sexy as its own title, right? It's not specific enough. But if that was something like a secret sauce, maybe if you're a nutritionist or something like that, that could be cool if you've got like recipes and things like that. But I would only recommend this having like a subtitle with it so that there's more specificity, or adding more like who your audience is, something in there that makes it a little bit more specific. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, and that's why I put it first. Okay, so these are just some ideas. Now, here's another one. How about names? Like, let's say you're coming up with a group name for the same audience, a group name for this audience. And these are just some that I came up with. Sexy Squad, Sassy Sirens, Women's Wellness Warriors, Flawless Fitness Femmes. And keep in mind, these might not resonate with you if you're not in that specific audience, right? So, but for that audience, which of these, you can say 1, 2, 3, or 4, type in the chat, which of these do you think would be the best title for that audience? And if that neither of those or none of these, what do you have another idea? Women's Wellness Warriors. And I also want us to remember these names because in a bit, we're going to talk about brand and how your brand will influence your ultimate name ideas and how important that is in actually coming up with the final names. Any other suggestions? And if you want, you feel free to unmute. Notice here, all of them have alliteration. So, yes, okay. Tiff also likes 3. Great. Okay, cool. So let's move on. So align with your brand identity. That's the second step. And so your brand identity is how you aspire to be perceived or known by your audience, how you want your audience to know you, right? And it's based on your vision for the next 12 months or beyond. And you always want to remember, what is the core message of your brand? So as an example, with your brand, I'm constantly helping people. I see the vision for my clients before they do. And so I'm constantly helping them step into that next 12 months of their, like where they want to be in 12 months and beyond. And I help them create that brand from that space. And so here's an example of using real estate. And I know that the pictures are a little fuzzy, so I apologize for that. But let's say you're a realtor and this is the house that you're selling. It's a little on the shabby side, right? But a wise realtor knows that with maybe a few cosmetic enhancements and with good photography, they can make a little kind of like a shabby house into the best house on the block. And so your brand image is kind of like what you are right now, or how you see yourself, how you are seen right now. And your brand identity is where we aspire to be with maybe some tweaks and enhancements. So always think about that. Have that in the back of your mind when we're talking about your brand. Okay? So I want you to answer these 2 questions. And you are free to type this in the chat, or you could just take notes. But where would you like to see your business and your brand over the next 12 months? And if you're, like, for example, in the case of Ray, as an author, you are the brand, right? So where you, the brand, the author, maybe a speaker. So some of us are personal brands. Where you as a personal brand, where do you see yourself or want to be over the next 12 months? And then the second question is, what is the core focus of your brand in 3 to 5 words? So as an example, you said that it was women 40 plus business owners. Okay. And so that's great. So that's part of your brand. And then how do you support them? Is it as a healer?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay, great. But my point was, let's make it like a very simple focus of your brand in just a few words, right? Just so that you can get to the core of your brand.
Right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So Ray says teach self-esteem, reduce recidivism. And then for you, Ray, I would say also maybe adding in your audience. I probably should have included that here. Your audience, which is mostly men, right? And if you happen to know, like, for example, if they happen to be men over 50 or something like that, it just helps to fine tune the naming and or titling process when we are clear about we're more specific about who our audience is.
And I would also add, Ray, that you want to keep your words simple, because recitative, not too many people are going to know what that means.
Yes, actually, I think I have an idea, but I'm not entirely sure what that means, actually.
I agree with you.
So I was going to say that, so I'm glad that you said that. So, right. And so going back to my STAIRS acronym, right? When we're creating messaging, we definitely want to keep use simpler words whenever possible. And I know Tony, as a master copywriter, I know you say, what's the age group for writing emails and copy? What is it that you recommend?
You stay under, don't go any higher than a 9th grade education.
Got it. Okay, great. Kids living in single parent homes. Oh, okay. And so you think, I mean, that's great. I'm so glad that you clarified that, Ray, because there's right? Like there's, what are their goals? What are their challenges and problems? But when you get down to the heart of their why and their motivation, there is some deep emotional stuff that happens in those homes, right? If you can really, and even as I'm saying that, like, I can feel it. There's an energy that is much more emotionally reactive when we can discuss some of those issues. And I get that sometimes things like trauma and very heavy topics, we don't always want to have those in the titles, because it could open up some stuff and have them not even want to tap into it. So I can see where sometimes we might want to mask some of that specificity. We can be discerning. We can be discerning, and when is the right time and place to use some of those topics. Okay, so type in the chat if you've written down your you have your vision and your core focus for your brand. Say, type yes or thumbs up. Or if you needed support, you can also let me know that as well. Is your core audience African American men, right?
No.
Okay. So then for you, if you're going to be talking, let's say if you happen to do a talk or if you happen to write a book that's targeting African Americans, and you know that that word lands for them, then definitely you can consider using it. I would say with every other audience, you'd want to keep it, have a simpler term, or maybe group of terms. Maybe there isn't just one word. Okay, so let's continue. And so this part is where we think about the overlap, step number 3, between our audience and our brand identity. And so we want all our names, if we create a name for our business or a title, to always be aligned with our brand identity and audience. And it's so important so that we maintain consistency with our brand, and also so that there isn't confusion, right? So I'll just use the Art of Living as an example. If Matthew McConaughey, who is known as an actor, would have had a name or a title that had something, I know art, maybe there's an overlap with art, but if he would have used act in his title, then it would have tied in a little better. If he would have used masks or something like that, that has an overlap with him being known as an actor, then I think it would have resonated more. It would have definitely resonated with me, and maybe it would have drawn even a greater audience of people who were interested in him as an actor. Okay, so using the women's fitness group example, Sexy Squad may not be aligned with your brand if your audience is older and modest and your brand is conservative. So that's why I said I wanted to remind you all that we have to make sure that it's in alignment with our brand, because I like the term Sexy Squad, but that might not be your brand, right? And so if your audience are older women who are more conservative or more modest, a term like sexy is probably not going to land. It might be a turnoff, right? The same thing I said trauma a minute ago. Having trauma in a title for somebody who's currently going through trauma might be a turnoff. Even though it's specific, it might be a turnoff. And so again, we have to be discerning in how we come up with our names and titles to make sure that we're in alignment. And so I came up with an example here, and you're welcome to type it in the chat or unmute if you have another title. I just said fit and fabulous females over 50. That might be a little long, but I think you get the idea. I wanted to use alliteration, right? Fit females over 50, fabulous females over 50, right? Coming up with another title. It could be catchy and edgy, but still conservative. It doesn't, the word sexy or sassy or sirens or vixens might be too edgy for that group of, if that's your target audience. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is step number 4 is you brainstorm ideas. Okay. And the best way to brainstorm ideas is, if you're super creative, you can do it on your own or with a friend, or we're going to do some here in the group. But I love using an AI software called ChatGPT, and it's currently free. Type in the chat if you've ever used ChatGPT, type yes so that I know, or another AI software. And the key, and we're going to go through it a little bit together, is to use commands that are super specific so that you can get the best targeted results. And that's all I'm going to talk about right now, because we're going to do an example together, and I'll be able to show you what I'm talking about. So step number 5 is to narrow down your top 2 to 3 choices. So you might have several choices. We want to narrow it down to the top 2 to 3. That's all I'm going to say about that until we work on it together. And then number 6 is to search trademark for names. So this is actually most relevant if you have a brand name. So like Coca-Cola, Google. When I was using Visibility Vixens, I was using that as a brand name. You should check the trademark in your country. I'm going to use the example here in the US, but if you're in another country, then you want to check if there is a trademark. I think you should still check in the United States, everyone, because a lot of online, if you're an online brand or you have online content, you definitely want to check in the US, but check in your country to make sure that your brand name is not being used by somebody else. And titles and one-time use names, like for example, a book title, currently do not need to be trademarked in the US. That's as of the last time I checked. So you always want to double check anytime you're creating anything, just to make sure that there isn't a new trademark law in wherever you are. But so if you have a book title, that does not need to be trademarked. But if you have a book series, a name that you use, like a brand name that you use for all of your different content, that you want to make sure is trademarked. And the reason I bring this up is because of my personal situation. I was given like a cease and desist for using visibility vixens, and I had to hire an attorney, and I was able to resolve it. I still don't have the name. Like, I can't use the name, but at least I didn't have to pay or do anything more, and I didn't put myself in a perilous position. So you definitely want to do a trademark search before you start using a brand name. And then the last thing is just to make your final choice, right? A couple of ideas here. I want to make sure that you love the name and title that you choose. So whatever you end up with, you love it. Choose a name or title that your audience would love. And if you need extra help, make a poll to people in your target audience and allow them to help you decide. I do this all the time. Some of you who know that are in my Facebook group, I'm always making polls to see what people are interested in, what they like, what they want, just to get a gauge of what they're interested in and what would land and what would resonate. So I'm going to recap the 7-step process, and then we can just do it together. Up until now, does everything, do you have any questions, or does this, everything so far make sense?
Yes, it's great. Thanks.
Awesome. So here we're going to go through the 7-step brand naming process again. And then I'm going to go into a little more detail here. So the first thing is, what is your target audience's main goal, pain point, and motivation? And remember the idea, the example that we had about the woman who wants to lose weight, and really getting deep into her ultimate motivation. Yes, absolutely. I'd love to dive deeper with you on that. Number 2, what is the core idea that represents your brand identity? So remember, like we said, just a few words that go through your brand identity, just so that you get to the heart of it. Now we want to create an overlap. What name or title overlaps with your audience and your brand? So next would be to brainstorm some ideas. And so we're going to use ChatGPT together. I'm going to go through an example with you so that we can make sure to give specific commands for the best responses. I'm doing it for mine, so we're gonna actually do it for me, for mine, something I want to create. So we'll use me as an avatar for now. And okay, so the next thing is to narrow down to top 2 to 3 choices. And if it's a brand name, you want to search for trademark or whatever it is in your country. And remember that titles do not need trademark. And choose a top choice you're most aligned with. And then I said here as a bonus, poll your audience with the top 2 to 3 names and titles to choose the final choice. Okay. So, okay, I'm gonna actually go ahead and show you. Okay, so here we have ChatGPT. Let me know, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So I actually went through this process to test it. And so here's, I'm going to just show you what I typed, and then we can just do one together. So the first one here, I said, group name for entrepreneurial women who want to grow their brand visibility. And these are some of the names that ChatGPT came up with. Fempreneur Network, She Means Business, the Brand Visibility Circle, entrepreneurial queens. They were okay. So then I said, okay, remember I had visibility vixens, and I said a group name for entrepreneurial women who want to grow their brand visibility similar to visibility vixens. So here we started to get some better names that were a little more of that emotional connection and more of that, just more interesting. Branding bombshells. I actually really like that. I'm not sure that quite fits, but I like branding bombshells. Visibility queens. Empowered Entrepreneurs League. Not so much. Savvy Branding Sisters. Boss Branding Babes. Branding Mavericks. The Branding Goddesses. And then I said, okay, some more group names, right? So I wanted to get some additional ideas. Branding Divas. The Marketing Muses. So I actually used to have Mission Muses was a name that I used to have. So I really like the word muses. And then I said, okay, group name similar to the Visibility Tribe. So a couple of things to note here to make it worthwhile for you and your brand. You want to give some specifics. So here I said group name ideas, which is what I'm looking for the audience. So whenever possible, try to include an idea, a simple audience, so that ChatGPT can give you better results. And so remember how at first it just kind of gave me some very stale names? But once I started adding, if you can give an example of a name that you really like already, that will give ChatGPT a better indication of what type of name would work for you. And so here it says the Branding Sisterhood, the Empowerment Circle, the Branding Queens, the Business Boosters, the Female Founders Forum. Oh, that's so funny. That's one of the words one of the names that I came up with earlier. The Marketing Mavericks. And then I really liked the Branding Bombshells. So I said, come up with group name ideas for entrepreneurial women similar to Branding Bombshells. The Branding Bosses, the Branding Bells, the Branding Queens, the Branding Warner, the Business Beauties. So it really does give you a great starting point for your brand. Here I did it also with Marketing Muses. And I got there's a lot of overlap. So I'll try it one more time. And this will be a live one. So let me do this one more time. And I'll say, create a group name for entrepreneurial women similar to Visibility Vixens and Branding Bombshells. Let's see what we come up with. Or let's see what ChatGPT comes up with. Branding Vixens, Bold Visibility Builders. That's interesting. Bombshell Branding Brigade. The Visible CEOs. Branding Sirens, the Savvy Branding Squad. Visibility Queens. The Empowered Branding Collective. Branding Mavericks. The Bold Visibility Babes. That's kind of interesting. Bold Branding Babes. Bold Visibility Babes. Okay, so let me go back to, this is just an idea of how you can use ChatGPT. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. These were some of the names. I had done this before, and these were some of the names that we had come up with. Visibility Voices, Branding Bombshells, the Visibility Tribe, Marketing Muses or Marketing Musas, which is the Spanish version, the Branding Divas, the Branding Sirens, Visibility Warriors, and Branding Bosses. Or Branding Babes could be another one, but that could turn some people off. So out of these 8, what would you say, type in the chat, what are your top 2 to 3 favorite names? Or do you have another suggestion? And Joyce, if you'd like to come off of mute, I'd be happy to speak to you as well if you want to share any ideas that you have. So you like visibility voices the best. Okay, what's your second and third choice?
None of them.
You don't like any of these other ones?
Not really.
Okay.
I liked in the ChatGPT. I did like shoot, what one was it? If you go back to that, I could tell you.
Sure. Yeah. Branding bosses, branding bells. Do you remember what word it had in it?
It had it was the beyond both sides and the visibility in the middle.
Oh, like I think it was bold, visibility,
yes,
something.
babes.
Which was kind of interesting because I just started. Remember, I used
Using
the word
bold.
boldly today,
Right.
so that's kind of interesting. Let me see if I can find it. This is why I like ChatGPT saves this. So bold, visibility, babes.
Yeah.
Visibility builders,
build-
bold, visibility babes. Babes, I like babes. My concern would be, would that turn somebody off?
I think less than vixens would.
You see, that's a good point. So this is exactly why what I suggest is to come up with 2 to 3 names and then make sure that they're all in alignment, test them to make sure that there's no trademark infringement. And then if you're still not sure, if you're between 2 names or 3 names, put it to your audience. Maybe people would really like bold visibility babes or bosses.
I mean, bold branding babes flows a little better.
Bold branding babes does because of the B, yeah, branding babe. Okay. So then I'm going to add that, share this, and let's add, which of these do you like the least? Visibility warriors, maybe? I might use warrior in my true crime channel, like empowering warriors, because there's a W's in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I like warrior for the empowering true crime.
Yeah.
Okay, so your top choices were visibility voices and bold visibility babes, or branding babes, or bold.
Yeah.
If I was a catering to, so I live in Miami. I happen to be Hispanic and bilingual. If I wanted to do a local only group, marketing musas might work because there's a lot of bilingual women here, a lot of women from South America. So if I wanted to create an in-person group here, that could work. So you see why it's so important to know who your audience is and what your brand stands for so that you can make sure that the name is in alignment with both of those. Okay, so let's just say our top choices are visibility voices and bold. Well, let's see here. Okay, so let's do visibility. Let's do visibility voices and bold branding babes. We're going to test that in the USPTO, which is the trademark group or trademark site.
And one of the reasons why I liked it with the visibility in the middle is because of the visibility vault.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It would tie in.
And I'm also open. I'm not married to the word visibility either. So I am open to, I have been a branding person from the beginning.
Right.
So I'm open to that. I do like the visibility vault though. So let's try bold branding babes. So what I'm doing, can you see my screen? Or do I have to share? I know I have to share it. Okay. So I came up with 2 or 3 options. Now the next step is to type it into the trademark search. And I've got here bold branding babes. Let's go ahead and submit that. Okay, so there is no records found. So that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, oh no, that was bold branding. Let me do bold visibility babes. Okay, so there's nothing for that either. This is good. Let's try visibility voices. There's nothing for that.
Nice.
Now let's try visibility vixens, which is the one that I had before. Oh, there's a trademark.
Yep.
And it's live. So that's what you would look for. If you're going onto the USPTO, the US Patent and Trademark Office, you want to check to see if it's live or if it's dead. And so this is Visibility Vixen is live. And you can add an S, because I tried, because the description here of what the goods and services are is very similar to my brand, what I was doing with Visibility Vixen. So I was infringing on her trademark. So that was a lesson that I had to learn right there. One other thing I wanted to do is empowering warriors, just to see if that has anything. Warriors empowering children. Okay, and then this other align. So both of these are dead. So if I wanted to create a name for empowering warriors, then I would need to make sure that there was no other trademark for that. I think that these probably wouldn't be aligned with what I do anyway, so it would probably be okay. It'd probably be safe. Warriors empowering children. Oh, you see, that's even a clothing brand. Cloth patches for clothing. That's not really the same industry. So you want to make sure that it's not the same industry, that there's no competition, that there would be no confusion between your brand and that brand. Okay, so then let's go. The last thing we're going to do then is, let's go back to here. It says, okay, so we did this. We narrowed it down to 2 to 3 choices. If it's a brand name, we did the trademark. Choose your top choice, what you're most aligned with. So I still think I've got those 2 to 3 names. And what I will do is poll my audience to see what they like the best. And then that way I get an idea from my audience what they like. And then that will help me make the final choice. You don't have to, if you still are really in love with one other name, then, then again, use your intuition and use your discernment on what's the best title for your brand. So I hope that the 7-step brand naming process has helped you to get some ideas, get clear about how to integrate your audience and your brand into the naming process, and some other ideas like the fact that you can use ChatGPT and the importance of making sure that there's no trademark infringement and things like that. Hopefully that's helped you and it's giving you some new tools and new ideas to be both strategic and creative with creating your names and titles. All right, so let's continue. Never underestimate how a great brand name or title can entice, engage, and excite your desired audience. And I hope that did that for you and gives you some ideas of how you can excite your audience. So as anybody would like to share their experience, I'd love for you can type it in the chat or you can unmute now and share your experience.
Hi, Alex. I'd like to share.
Sure.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say I think my biggest takeaway from today is the fact that you broke it down into 7 steps. Sure, it could have been like 5, maybe even 4.
Mhm.
That's it. But I love the fact that you broke it down into bite-sized pieces where it wasn't overwhelming, easy to understand, and I thought you just did a great job there. Very informative, great class.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's your strong suit, and I think that's what all of us in your community love about you, that you have the patience for us people that aren't so technically savvy anymore. And I mean, to you, it's all easy and it's just second nature to you. But for us, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And, and the fact that you take the time and you actually show us, like you did today, on the screen, exactly what you're talking about and exactly how to do it. And it's like you don't leave anything unturned. You show us everything until we got it. And if we don't get it the first time, you usually go through it again and again until each person has it, which is incredible because most people would never do that.
Mm.
And the other thing to go along with that is if there's something somebody needs to know about, all they have to do is tell you and you'll just show them right then and there too, which is awesome because many coaches do not do that. They like to think they do that, but they sure don't.
No, thank you for saying that. Because yeah, it's like if I could just show you in a minute or two,
Right. Well,
better to do that.
yeah, because it's like uh, since I had burned my hands and I forgot a lot of things because I used to know how to do all this stuff and I don't anymore. And because it the medications interfered with my brain. So I don't feel confident doing it anymore. I don't like doing it anymore, but you really simplify it and you make it so it's not overwhelming at all. Just like today, you broke it down, you shared Chat GPT, you did it all. And it's like, how many of us were going to search patents? And you showed how easy it was. It took seconds. When,
Right. Oh, that's such a
when
great
you said it,
point.
yeah, right. I'm not going to do that. But
Mhm.
it was so easy. Why not do it?
Great point. It
It,
seems overwhelming. It sounds
yeah,
overwhelming, but it's not. It's super quick and easy, actually, and can
exactly.
save you thousands of dollars, if not more.
Exactly. And that's your gift. That's what you're so good at, along with a lot of other things. I mean, you do so many things well, especially with your community. But I think that kind of stuff where you go through step by step hand holding, which people promise they do, but they really don't.
Mhm.
You actually do the hand holding, especially for techie stuff that most of us are overwhelmed with. But I mean, you go over so many things and we learn so much. But I think that's the one thing a lot of us appreciate the most
Oh,
because nobody else has ever done that I've ever seen. And I've been with lots of coaches like
well,
you, and I
thank you.
know lots of
I
coaches.
really appreciate that because I designed this specifically based on feedback that I've gotten, and thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And you absolutely love the speed of implementation. I know that too.
This is true, right? Because the time is now for us to be boldly seen and heard. So whatever we can do to, to take action now. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Tony. I'm gonna.
Thank you for all you've done for us. We
Well,
all appreciate you.
hmm?
We all appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Well,
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate you. I appreciate everyone who's here, who's joined us, who hopefully you learned something today. You enjoyed it. It was really important to me that this was both a strategic and a creative process. So hopefully I was able to deliver on that, get both of those juices going because it's like left brain and right brain, right? And I think that's what, especially when it comes to names and titles, we want that to be both a creative and a strategic process. And I think hopefully this my step by step process does that, and hopefully you have fun with it too. And let me know when you do decide to have a name or a title. Share with me. I'd love to see it. And I can even give you some feedback if you want to share it with me before you put it out. I'd be happy to do that as well. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you soon. For more help growing your visibility and monetizing your brand, go to alexanderfigueredo.com. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Thank you.